Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard and this is Lap of the World. You join us now for part 3 of our major service series for my 1992 NSX back here, which at 289,000 miles is due for its, I think, 3rd or 4th timing belt and water pump change. If you've missed parts 1, 2, or 0, I've left links in the description below. When we last left off, though, we had removed the valve covers and successfully loosened the crank pulley bolt. We are going to keep going from there, but first we do have to go back and play with that crank pulley just a little bit more. Right, so after loosening this bad boy last time, unfortunately, in the process of doing so, we advanced the crank a little bit from top dead center, so we need to rotate it around a couple more times to get it back on top dead center so we can fix things in place for the next steps. Alright folks, so now that we are back to number 1 top dead center, as you can tell, we are going to employ some of these things. This is a roughly 5mm, 4.96 by my dial caliper's reckoning, piece of stainless steel dowel that I have bent. Let me explain. So I'm going to be using these to pin the camshafts in place. Put them in these holes and you can see they kind of go in and they engage down here. They engage through this cam cover and down actually into a recess in the cam shaft. So you can see they go in just not much, but it doesn't take much. And that will hold the cam gears in place when we go to remove the belt. Now the service manual at this point calls for using 5.0mm pin punches. Unfortunately, in the land of bald eagles and the English measurement system, coming by 5.0mm pin punches is not really that easy. You could order some online, however, they're not cheap. I think they're, even the cheapest ones are $10 a piece, and most reviews question the precision of their machining. So what I did instead was ordered some of these stainless steel dowels, which again, calipers tell me are about 4.96mm, which is closer than the common thing you're going to find at the hardware store, which would be 3/16 of an inch. Now, 3/16 pin punches will allegedly work, according to a couple of write-ups that I found, but I figured if I could get more precise than that for less money, that was probably the way to go. I'll leave a link in the description. I've just bent them in half in this case to give myself some purchase for removing them without having to resort to using things like pliers. So now with our improvised pins in place, we can go back and remove the already loosened crank pulley bolt and the crank pulley along with it, which will give us access to the front timing covers. It is worth noting that you should not pin the cams before you break the crank pulley bolt loose because of the significant amount of torque required if something were to give way, or if your bracing tool failed somehow, you could potentially shear off one of your pins or get yourself in a literal jam with one of these pins being very difficult to remove. You also want to make sure that these are short enough that when you do tilt the engine up by the requisite 5 degrees, that you don't get any interference between the top of this and the body of the car. I think that's more of a concern on the rear bank, just given the lack of clearance back there. But whatever kind of pin punch or rod that you order to do this, you want to make sure that it is short enough. Long enough to do the job, but short enough to not cause problems. Having now removed the crank pulley, I have one more thing I need to remove that's a little bit supplemental, but in my opinion, should be a next step for any first generation NSX, and that is removing the balancer shield. Let me explain. This is the back side of your crank pulley. You have the pulley on the outside here with the groove channels, and then inside here you have a molded in rubber harmonic dampener. This is kind of balanced. You see these things here. It's a big chunk of rubber with a little metal donut on the back of it. These things have a propensity on NSXs to delaminate from the pulley, but then because they're still kind of involved with this whole rotating assembly, they continue spinning, they chew a hole in your timing cover and then the belt, or at the very least, they get tangled up enough in the belt that it causes the belt to jump teeth and shenanigans ensue. This has claimed several C-Series motors over the years, and the solution is very simple. These balancer shields were pioneered by Dave at Cedar Ridge Fabrication. He sells them as well as Science of Speed at this point. They are a metal ring that mounts with 2 bolts behind your crank pulley, and while it doesn't prevent the balancer from delaminating from the crank pulley, it does provide a lot of protection if it does. Alright, at this point I need to own up to doing 2 things off camera. I know, and I'm sorry. I came out here the other night and was not feeling too well and forgot a memory card on my desk, but figured I would get something done anyway. And so at that point I went ahead and removed the AC tensioner pulley and bracket. That was 3 bolts. I don't really think it needs much illustration, so you'll be fine. The other thing that I did the following day was fabricate this little arts and crafts project here, which is an oil pan guard. You put this under here and these little vertical pieces send the load up to the flange rather than putting it on the bottom of the oil pan. Really, your one job here is to not dent the oil pan. This may be overkill, but definitely at least like an 8x8 or 12x12 piece of minimum 2x thickness wood under the oil pan should distribute the load enough that it'll be fine. But you don't want to dent the oil pan, especially anywhere near where the pickup is. So this thing actually is, it is referred to and illustrated in the service manual only as attachment. So I can only assume by virtue of only ever being referred to by one name, it's either modern art, a Brazilian soccer player, or the latest scent from some cologne for people with clingy significant others. Attachment.
Map of the world.
All right, with attachment in position and Jack supporting it with requisite hockey puck, we are ready to now undo a couple of engine mounts. Oh, that was lucky. I was expecting it to be pinched because I probably didn't have the engine quite level with the other mount out. With the motor mounts undone and the engine tilted the specified 5 degrees, it's now time to get on to removing what will probably be one of the more fiddly operations here, and that is removing the timing covers. Let's get started. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that that last bolt, which is kind of down there against the bulkhead on the top of the timing cover, or top of the forward timing cover, that's probably, if I were doing this again, I would probably take that one out before I tilted the engine, because I think you would have a little more room for your wrench because it wouldn't be up against that, I think that's a fuel line. So just a note there, I think if I was going to do it again, I would probably disassemble everything that I could reasonably get to easily before I tilt the engine, then tilt the engine. Of course, I guess I just have it on a jack now, so I could untilt the engine, but what's fun in that? All right, folks, well, as you can tell, you're joining me now from underneath the car. I'm kind of spiking this out because I heard lots of horror stories about what I was assuming was this bolt here. This is the sort of top rear bolt on the rear timing cover. Now, this may be different if your car has stock cats on it. I have these Science of Speed high flow cats here, but nonetheless, I can easily, and I have been able to easily, I've already cracked it loose, get an arm up in there with a 10mm wrench, and I can visually work even. Actually, I think the same, or its opposite number on the front bank was far more difficult and fiddly to get to. So just kind of note that there are a couple of bolts on the timing covers, I guess at least the bottom timing cover and rear timing cover, that are going to be more easily accessed from underneath the car. So bear that in mind before banging your head too hard against the wall from trying to reach in and get to them from the top. All right, so with all the timing covers unbolted, I've been told the best way to do this is to sort of slide the rear cover out of the way, then remove the bottom cover, and then go back in and fish the rear cover out. So as much as I hate that I've spent my entire January and February under the car in the garage rather than going to racetracks or planning to go to a racetrack, it's stuff like this that makes me feel a little better about spending the time and effort to do it myself. There's not a gasket in sight in this entire setup here. Now, I was not the last person to have these covers off the car. However, I'm not going to name and shame. There's no need. I don't have any ill will here, and nobody is likely to be taking their NSX for a service to this outfit anytime soon. So, this is not a mechanic issue here. This is probably just the car or previous incidents. But I probably will be going ahead and investing in a new rear cover, and then of course I'm going to order a gasket set. So hopefully the availability there isn't too bad. I'd hate if I get stuck waiting on that, but it's definitely something I'm going to do. All right, guys and gals, we have our timing covers all off and thus have complete access to all of the timing belt, tensioners, and of course the water pump right there. So the next thing we're going to do is the actual belt manipulation, which is of course what we will get into in the next episode. I apologize for leaving you on that somewhat cliffhanger this time around. It's actually just how things worked out from a timing of my working on the project. This is stuff that I've done during the week where I don't have a lot of time. It's currently fairly late. I do still have a day job. Please subscribe. No, seriously, if you don't want to miss the next one, do consider clicking the subscribe button with the bell. That way you'll get a notification when that one goes live. But in that next episode, we will be doing the actual belt manipulation of getting the belt off and a new one on in hopefully right the first time manner. But I hope you're enjoying this series. Again, I'm just kind of working with what I got for right now. Got to get the maintenance done before I can go out and play. If you are, please give me a like. Leave a comment of encouragement that I'll be done soon and able to get back out to another racetrack. But until that happens, though, I will see you in the next one. I'm Richard. This is Lab of the World, and I will see you all in the next video, if not at the track.